Hello everybody, thank you for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is on adaptive case management with activity. This is a part one of this webinar series, and this part one will look into the introduction into the technology we've used and a demo. Today's presenter is Carlos Miggins, Head of Delivery here at Zaizi. We will record this session for you, and I will be sending a recording to everybody who has joined us today. If you do have any questions, please do type them in the chat box, and we will get them answered for you at the end of the session. Over to Carlos.
Thanks, Nav. So as Nav said, today's presentation is part one of adaptive case management, and what we're going to do today is introduce you to some of the technology behind what's being done with adaptive case management. We're using the activity workflow engine, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll do a demonstration. I'll give you some background on activity as well as how it's being used. So a little bit of background on Zaizi. Zaizi is a consultancy that specializes in open source. We do consultancy and systems integration, and we implement a wide range of solutions for content-centric applications and business processes. We work in an agile model to ensure that we give our customers the right product at the right price, and make sure that you can realize the ambitions that you've got for digital. We have been Alfresco's Partner of the Year in 2012 and 2013, and amongst the types of open source products that we use, in addition to Alfresco, we partner with a company called Effisoft for digital scanning, and we use Drupal for website presentation and development. And activity falls into the Alfresco camp in this case, but we'll talk a little bit more about how activity came to be through the presentation. So activity, it's an enterprise business process management system, which at its core has a high-performance engine based around the BPMM 2.0 standard, which is now the most widely used standard for process engines. And it's targeted not only at developers, but also at business people. And you'll see some of that coming out here through the demonstration and the presentation. Just to give you an idea of activity in use, this is taken from one of the organizations currently using activity in quite a serious way, which is CERN in Geneva. If you're not familiar with CERN, they're the ones that run the Large Hadron Collider, amongst other particle accelerators. They have quite a lot of people and quite a lot of processes that they need to manage across their different departments and divisions. And they decided to adopt activity very early on to automate a number of administrative processes throughout their organization. At the moment, they've got in the region of about 65 administrative processes across a range of business areas, such as procurement, finance, safety, and so on. One of the other areas that they have is HR. And one of the interesting things about human resources for them is that they have people from almost every country in the world employed in one way or another at CERN, and every country has slightly different types of paperwork that they need to produce. So the process is really is something that's quite difficult for them to encapsulate in a standard BPM type technology. So what they did was they integrated the activity process engine together with one of their line of business applications, which they called EDH, their electronic document handling system, and activity forms the backbone part of that. This EDH system is actually an in-house developed application, doesn't use any of the standard activity forms technologies. And the issue that CERN actually have is creating new forms for the system takes them much longer than it takes to build new processes. So they're actually looking at some of the new technology that is coming out with activity for form building. Their key goal was to really reduce the time and effort to process documents and to ensure that they captured everybody's approvals and signatures, and they now have more than 17,000 active users across the world, and they process over 360,000 electronic documents and even more signatures every year. So activity here is really quite is being used in a very high throughput document management type scenario. Activity was established as an open source project in 2010, founded by Alfresco and funded by them. The core contributors initially to the project were people who had been previously on the JBoss JBPM project, and soon they were able to release the initial version of Activity, which became successful very quickly. The community now has 75 active contributors with over 10,000 downloads a month, and about 20,000 users hit the website every month. The rationale for Alfresco to fund Activity was that they needed a new workflow engine inside Alfresco, and from Alfresco 4.0 onwards, the Activity workflow engine was embedded in Alfresco 1, and with the latest release, the community engine is now on version 5.x, and that's now embedded in Alfresco 1. So that's widely used in document management by Alfresco customers, even if they don't know that they're using Activity as the workflow engine behind that. More recently, Alfresco have taken that community product and they've created an enterprise edition to respond to market demand. They have created commercial support for Activity. It's the same, essentially the same BPMM 2.0 process engine, but what they've done is they've layered some additional user interface products over the top, and they've released a BPM suite that's aimed at people-centric processes, and that's one of the things that we're going to look at shortly. The BPM engine is available both as a cloud instance and also available for you to run on site, and is fully clusterable and has everything that you would expect from a high transaction throughput BPM engine. When you actually look at the Activity BPM suite, it gives you a range of things. It gives you the ability to really start new processes quickly through this mechanism called Kickstart. It gives you the ability to manage your profile through identity management, and it gives you the ability to look at your currently running tasks. So this is what the user interface looks like out of the box. You've also got analytics there, which allows you to see how processes are progressing through the system. One of the major things about the new BPM suite from Alfresco, and the thing that makes it really good for adaptive case management, is this ability to add new apps into this area. As you can see here, rather than just the original ones, I've now got an insurance claim, I've got a valuation app, and I've got a police submission report here, and we'll see these in the demonstration. These can be added either by business analysts, or even if you give them the right privileges, by users themselves, where they can then adapt the business process to more clearly meet the requirements of the business. So the idea is that rather than putting the responsibility for the process design just in the hands of the business analyst who models and simulates the process before it's executed, the notion behind adaptive case management is that it allows any knowledge worker to both create and act on the processes. So there's less separation of design and runtime. There might be events and rules that guide the process, but the idea is that ACM places the decision-making where it belongs in the hands of business people rather than the IT staff. So Kickstart, that's the place where you would start off most of your workflow or business process modeling from. This gives you the ability to create full BPM workflows or step-by-step workflows using a step editor. We'll look at those in just a moment. The full BPM editor is more geared towards business analysts. The step editor is more geared towards your standard business user to make it much easier for them to add in new components to workflows. In association with this, there's a forms editor, which is a drag and drop forms editor that allows them to build in conjunction with the process the forms to capture the information and the documents required behind the process itself. So the BPMM editor looks something like this. So there's quite a lot there. It's very much a drag and drop type interface. There is no coding involved in this. So the business analyst can build a BPMN type workflow using all the BPMN notation and with full 2.0 support. You can import and export BPMN processes directly from here, and you've pretty much got all the control that you need to build a sophisticated and complex business process from here. The step editor is much easier and much easier to use, and it's intended really for business users rather than business analysts, and it allows them to set a process up kind of from top to bottom with each step assigning the task to either groups or individuals and allowing the tasks to be controlled, still with the integration of the forms editor, but here there's far less complexity, so this is much more aimed at the business user. You can take one of these and then if you want to give it to a business analyst, and they can actually embellish it and make it more sophisticated and complex. The forms editor is available to both types of designers, and this is effectively something that allows you to create and edit forms in a very easy way by dragging and dropping fields onto a tabbed form and providing validation and so on. The other key thing about this is that it allows you to integrate with a range of different systems for storing documents. So clearly the one that we're most interested in is Alfresco, but it also supports integrations into Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, and various other technologies. So once you have built one of these BPM applications, these BPM applications can then be put up on a landing page for users, and they can select from these. So, for example, they could select here a corporate HR process, and they could click on that, and it would allow them to start up one of the processes from that particular app. The task manager is where each individual user will find their tasks that they're currently due to work on and that they need to collaborate on as part of a process. But from here, they can also start and monitor processes as well. And as you would expect, you can update your personal information through identity management. You can create groups and organize groups and capabilities through identity management as well. Analytics gives you the ability to work out how your business processes are doing, to create and save reports, and clearly if you can analyze how processes are performing, you can actually optimize key business processes to find out where bottlenecks may be and to try and remove those bottlenecks. There are two ways currently of deploying the activity process engine. One is on-site, as you can see here on the bottom. That's on-premise, where you would actually install the application and run everything internally on your own infrastructure. The second deployment option is actually in the cloud, as you can see on the top, and you can run this. Each organization would have its own tenant and its own user application, so everything is separated out, and both of these provide integration with various different types of enterprise content management systems to manage the content through the business process workflow. I've kind of mentioned community with activity, and enterprise is something which is fairly new. The difference between the two types or two flavors of activity is that with community you've got the core engine available, and you've got an editor for processes available in Eclipse. But the things that you see here with the new user interface and the new applications is available through the enterprise product only. The difference between the two in terms of releases is that with community, they release a new version every couple of months. That version is going to be a blend of new features, contributions, bug fixes, that kind of thing. So because they blend everything together, it's unpredictable as to exactly how stable that particular release is going to be. Enterprise is fundamentally different in that sense. It's designed really for people who've got mission-critical applications and want to make sure that they're on a very stable release. So with enterprise releases, they are much more planned. They're less frequent functional releases, but they're done on a stable base code where service packs come out with bug fixes only, so you can be guaranteed that bug fixes will happen, but your code base won't be destabilized by new functionality and new features going in. And it also provides hotfixes for critical issues. So what I'd like to do now is just turn over to a demonstration. So if you bear with me just one moment. So what I'm going to show you here is a demonstration just using the core technology. Now, one thing that you need to appreciate here is, because I'm just using the core technology to show you this, it doesn't look necessarily how you would want a finished application to look. We've actually got two users interacting here. The first user is actually a user that's external to the system. His name is John Smith. He's going to be initiating a claim through the system, but he's actually going to be using the activity screen that you see here. Ordinarily, you would actually hide this behind a website, which would be branded, and there'd actually be less things that they can do on the website that they can do through this user interface, but you'll get the idea. I'm actually going to show you as well what's going on behind the scenes with some of the technology as well, so that you can see what's going on. The other person that's going to be interacting in this demo is Jane, and she's on the internal side, so she's actually going to be processing the claim as it's coming through the system. And what we're doing here is, this isn't adaptive. What we're doing here is just showing you a traditional claims process going through the system. That'll be the thing that we're trying to simulate here, so that you can get used to looking at the screens, seeing the technology, and then the next part will actually look at making this adaptive. So let's start with John Smith. What he's going to do is initiate a claim. So John Smith here is going to start a claim, and the way he does that is that he chooses the process called insurance claim from the left-hand panel, and he can then give it a process name on the right-hand side. As I say, if you were doing this ordinarily from a website, some of this stuff would be done automatically for you when you initiated an insurance claim. Okay, so the insurance claim's been initiated, and we can actually see the process itself, how it's going to go through the system. We can see that currently this box in green is the insurance claim request, and that shows us that this is where the process currently is. Everything else is currently in grey, and as the claim goes through the system, each one of those will turn green as it goes through the system. Some of these boxes are indicating automated process steps. Other boxes are indicating complete applications or sub-processes for this particular workflow. So the submission supporting documents and inspection evaluation are both sub-processes. The quotation submission, as you can see, it's got a little icon of a person. That will be done by an individual. And upload quotation to Alfresco, as you can see here, has got a blue icon with a cog, and that indicates that that's an automated process. Okay. So we're going to go through this whole process at the moment. It's just initiated the claim. When John clicks on that claim, he can now enter in a range of details about the claim. And not very much in here. It's picked up the fact that it knows that it's John Smith who's logged in, so we've got his email address already. And then we've got a drop-down list of policy numbers. This drop-down list of policy numbers actually comes from Alfresco, as you can see here. So where I'm looking now is I'm actually looking inside an Alfresco enterprise repository, where inside the document library, we've identified the different individuals that can use the system by their email address. So we've got John Smith there. And if we look inside John Smith's folder, we can see that for each policy that he's got with our company, there is a different folder with all the policy details inside there. And this is the information that actually creates that drop-down list on the screen. Within each policy, when a claim is made, we get one of these 5170 or 5124 type folders that indicate the claim number. And then within each claim, we get 3 reports for this particular type of system, which is a police report, the quotation, and the valuation. So these will contain different documents as the workflow goes through the system. So if we were to add a new policy to the system, we can actually do it just manually here. So let's go ahead and do that. Or obviously, if this was a real system rather than a demonstration system, every time you take out a new policy, a new folder will be created for you here in the way that it's being done here. So now there's a new policy number. So when we go and refresh the screen here, you can see that in the drop-down list, we've now picked up that new policy number as well. So if we choose that, we'll give it a date of when the claim actually happened. We can also put in a type of claim. We've only got 2 things here, loss and theft, but there could be many others. And you can see here, one of the things that the form system allows you to do is, as we've chosen other as an incident type, it actually gives me the ability to specify other, the other type of the incident. Okay, so you can see now if we go back to the process diagram, it's gone into a sub-process. Let me go back to the top level here. the insurance claim has been done. It's created the claim in Alfresco, and it's now going into submission of supporting documents. This is actually a sub-process. So when we look at that, you can see we've got the police report submission. When we look at that process diagram for that, this is showing you that part of the sub-process. And each one of these can be built up using the BPMM Editor or the stepwise editor, and then you can plug together the different processes that you want to make up your total case management process. So in this particular one, the police report is submitted and uploaded to Alfresco, and somebody within the organization then verifies the details to see that they're accurate. So let's go ahead and do upload our police report for this particular insurance claim. Okay, so we've got a new claim number created, and you can see that there is nothing here currently in the police report, and the quotation and validation are also empty. So John can now go in and give a date for the police report, and he can then upload his file for the police report, and then he can submit this. What this is doing is it's actually putting the police report into Alfresco so that it's generally available. And we can see that now it's gone through both of those. Both of those are blue, verified details is green. So this is where it's currently sitting. And this is an internal task for the insurance company. So we are going to get Jane to do that shortly. So here we are. We're logged in now as Jane Jones, and she has the ability to verify the details on that police report. She can go in, she can look at the police, she can look at the report, and she can decide whether or not she's going to approve that. Or in this case, she's decided that actually the names don't match. So she's going to say that it's an invalid report and give a reason for it, and then put it on hold. What that's going to do, as you can see here, is that it's going to bounce that report back to the user, and they will see that the report's been rejected and the reason why the report's been rejected. So if we go back in as John, it will go through this exclusive gateway, and it will require resubmission. Okay, so we can see here that John gets a message back to say that the report is invalid, so he can get rid of that old report, add a new one in, and resubmit it once he's added that report into the system. Now, as Jane, I can see I've got the verified task again, and I can now approve that. And it goes on to the next task inside the workflow. The task that it's now got inside the workflow is an inspection task, which is part of the inspection and validation sub-process. And if we have a look at that sub-process, you'll see it's much simpler than the submit validation report, because in this case we're just having an inspection and an evaluation. Currently, inspection's on green, so that's where we're currently sitting with our process. Now, at this point, when an inspection's done, it could be uploaded in a range of different ways. What we're going to do is we're going to upload an inspection report directly into Alfresco, and once that is loaded into Alfresco, as part of this particular claim, it will appear in that task. Now, this inspection might actually have been carried out on site, and it might have been carried out using a mobile device, which is connected to Alfresco, and the document, the inspection report, might have been uploaded directly from something like an iPad or an Android device, for instance, directly into Alfresco. And once it appears in Alfresco, it will appear as part of this task. So let's upload the valuation report, the inspection report rather. And we'll see when we go back to our task that the inspection has been completed. It's on blue and it's now in valuation. Okay, when we get to the valuation step, you can see that the inspection document is part of the valuation step, so that whoever is doing this can actually read that, and they can go and look at that directly in Alfresco. Obviously, if this was in Dropbox or Box or some other system, they could go and directly look at that document within there. And once they've decided for the valuation that the estimated value is 345 in this instance, then they can put that in. We can see that the valuation is complete. And it's now on to submission of quote by the individual. So it's gone through the internal process at this point. It's gone back to John, who's an external user, to tell him that he can now get a quote for this claim, but it should be less than $345 in this instance, and he can go away and he can get that quote, and then he can get that quote and add it to the system directly. So he's now got a quote, and he's going to add that quote to the system, upload it, and add a date for when that quote was done. And then he's going to complete that. Okay, so we've gone pretty much through the whole process now. We've now got two police reports, one, the original one, which was wrong, and the new one. We've got our quotation, and we've got our valuation inspection report. So we've got all the components stored inside Alfresco. And the final thing is to actually clear and issue a check. And Jane has to do that as an internal user, so she should have a task now. Now, she doesn't see any tasks here because the task has actually gone to the financial group, and she's, although she's a member of the finance group, she's just looking at the tasks that are applicable to her. So if I go in here and I look at the task assigned to the financial department or the finance group, you can see that that particular task now comes up, and it's for anybody in the finance department. So typically the first thing that Jane will have to do is she'll have to claim the task, and once she's claimed the task, she can then complete it. By adding in a date, adding in a comment, and issuing a check if necessary. So what we've done is we've gone through a whole process here to show you some of the features of activity. You can see it's pretty easy to use. It's a nice, clean interface. And the way that these things have been built up is using the process editor. So it's actually been quite easy to build this particular demonstration as well. So now that we've had a chance to look at that demonstration, let me just take you through what we actually did there. So we processed an insurance claim from start to finish with a range of supporting documents with interactions from somebody external to the organization and somebody internal in the organization, where the process actually pretty much took care of itself by using sub-processes. When we look at adaptive case management, we'll actually see how some of those things like inspection and validation, submission of supporting documents, how some of those sub-processes can be changed by users and actually additional things added along the way. So that's the end of our part one. In part two, as I say, we'll look at adaptive case management, how we can actually take that building block and actually have it changed on the fly by users. Thank you.